virtual attendees are in. And Kristen, how are you?
That's
fine. Oh, yeah, in fact. Oh, and I've just passed around, started to circulate the list for everybody to identify themselves on the list. Let's make sure that makes the whole circuit of the room. And our general practice is to just go around introducing ourselves so everybody knows who's here. I'm Sam Bemis. I'm the chairman of the audit committee.
Lee Cheney, audit committee.
Foster Curtis, Inspector General.
Riyad Ali, City Auditor.
Brett Lewis, City Auditor's Office.
Ron McCoy, City Auditor's Office.
Rochelle Carter, City Auditor's Office.
Leanne Castro, City Auditor's Office.
Greg Miller, Clifton Larson Allen.
Audit Donald, CAO, City of Richmond.
Kristen Nye, committee member.
Trey Sibley, audit committee.
Shannon Fitzgerald, City Attorney's Office.
Dan Rexburg, DPU.
Bailey Martin, Richmond Fire.
Amy Popovich, DCAO for Human Services.
Doug Gurnett, DIT.
Wiggins, CAO's office.
Ken Martinez, Director of Revenue Administration.
Thank you, Jack.
William Brown, Deputy Inspector General.
Bill Perkins, City Council Staff.
Sophie McGinley, City Council Staff. Patricia Schulten, Finance Director.
Amar Furela, also
Hafiz Mohammed Ahmad, City Auditor's Office.
Tony Noel, City Auditor's Office.
Keith Brand, City Auditor's Office.
Alvira Harris, City Auditor's Office.
There we go. The first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the meeting. The last meeting was July 15th, so you have to dig deep. But first, are there any comments on those minutes? Then I would entertain a motion. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Next is Greg Miller is here from CLA. I'm glad to see you. I didn't think you were going to be here today. Welcome. To give the external audit.
I appreciate you guys having the opportunity for me to be here. Scheduling moves around, so I think Heather's name is in the agenda packet. It was filling in for me, but I'm glad I was able to attend in person after all. There should be a little presentation that's at everyone's seat. I'm not sure if it's on the screen. Yep, it's coming up on screen. So if you want to follow along on that, that's kind of what I'm going to be walking through. There are a couple placeholders. I'll skip through the agenda and the subtitle slide and jump to the audit scope. What am I pointing this at, Brad?
Oh, the keyboard should be. Oh, my computer right here.
Let me actually, while you're organizing that, I did skip over something that's actually important that I'd like to do. We've got some introductions. I've got several for the audit committee, and then I believe that the CAO's got some relatively senior new members of the city administrative staff. So first, I'll point out that when Amr was introduced in July, that brought the audit staff to 10. A full staff is 14. I've been on this committee for 8 years now, and this is the first time that I can say what I'm about to say, which is that I'm going to introduce 3 new members of the audit staff, and that's going to bring the total to 13. And I think that Riyadh is pretty close to adding number 14, which means for the first time in an eon, we will have a full audit staff, which is a fantastic development. Mohammed Amar has 14 years of diverse experience in public and private sector internal auditing and financial assurance. Before joining the Richmond audit staff, he served in senior audit advisory roles with various regional and global accounting firms, including Deloitte and Crowe. He's a certified internal auditor, certified information systems auditor, and he holds an MS degree in professional accountancy from the University of London. Keith Brown has 16 years of government experience conducting performance reviews of state executive branch agencies in the performance evaluation and research division of West Virginia Legislative Auditor's Office. He has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in history from Marshall University and is a certified information systems auditor. Alzira Harrison has 25 years experience in government internal auditing. She spent years conducting compliance and operational audits, evaluating internal controls, assessing risk management practices, investigating fraud, waste, and abuse for the government of Brazil. She holds a PhD in political science and is a certified internal auditor. Also, there's a new member of the audit committee, Zanis Talley, who is not here. Oh, Zanis is up. Oh, hey, Zanis. Okay, he's here.
I'm here virtually.
Good. Glad you're here. He's a graduate of James River High School, Catholic University, and the University of Richmond School of Law. He recently moved from Whiteford Taylor in Preston to the Baltimore-based firm Venable, which has opened an office in Richmond. His primary practice is advising developers and landowners in financing and closing real estate transactions. And he also advises governments and other public sector stakeholders on development, infrastructure, and zoning matters. Those are the audit side. And now I'll ask the CAO to introduce the new city.
Yeah, listen, one is interesting because the last time I sat here, we were in the midst of some audits coming forward. And I think, we talked about excellence and, really focusing on changes starting in day one. So today, some of those changes start with the addition of some really strong new talent. I'll start with one member who you may be more familiar with, is Amy Popovich, who she actually started before I did, but I don't think y'all have had the opportunity to meet her. So, and we have spent too much time together lately with emergency activities. She leads not only our sheltering operations, but neighborhood activities, justice services, everything in the human services cluster. Brings deep experience, especially when it comes to health and human services, helping to lead the Richmond and Henrico Health District, as well as being a major player in our COVID delivery, which for Virginia was very successful. A big part of that, I know the mayor gets a lot of credit, which he should, but also the folks who stood with and behind him, who were all throughout that organization, should get a lot of credit too. And Ms. Popovich is one of those folks. So she's done a great job for us today. Mr. Wiggins, who he's still here. I know he got a conflict meeting here, so let me do him next. So Mr. Wiggins brings a ton of experience as well. Most recently, he served in the city of Atlanta, leading all of the FIFA prep, which I'm sure he's probably upset about because they're releasing all of the great videos and touting all the work. And I'm like, yeah, I wonder if they've done that in that short period of time, but does he get a little bit of credit? But also helped to navigate a similar water crisis in Atlanta, and he served as a city manager and deputy city manager in multiple locations throughout his career as well. We also have Mr. Martinez, who is our newest member, Mr. Ken Martinez. He's a senior executive over 20 years in fiscal, municipal finance, and revenue administration. He gets a little bit of credit for it. Like, he came in on the tail end. So I got to give these other folks credit as well. But about a year ago, the city was much maligned for getting our billing out late and inaccurate. And this year, I would point out, it's been pretty quiet. And the reason for that is, one, we send out more bills, 70,000 of them, and our error rate is below that of many other places. So I do want to make sure we highlight, we don't get to talk about those wins sometimes because they're what you're supposed to do, but you hear a lot about it when you don't get it right. So I do want to highlight not only his leadership, but also Ms. Shelton, who is a very special case and leader for us. Ms. Shelton actually started her career in the city of Richmond and kind of came up through the ranks and served as a CFO, finance director in a variety of different places, including multiple AAA bond rating cities. And so we want to bring that back here. And it's even more important that her having those Richmond roots and having the willingness to come back and serve here in a tough environment. So let me make sure, like, I don't run from that. In a very tough environment to be able to manage and focus on everything from trans, I don't love to use the word transparency. I have to say open government, because I think that's really what we're striving for. And so again, thankful that she has joined us, as well as I'll close with Ms. Jackson. So Ms. Jackson has served in a variety of communities as everything from deputy CFO in the city of Chattanooga, de facto CFO for Augusta, Richmond County, a consolidated government in Georgia. You know, it's unique, these different governments, because here we don't often talk about it, but we're a consolidated government because we have independent cities and counties, which is actually what makes this environment very unique. In Georgia, it is the same way, except there are only 4 that are like that. Everybody else, a city sits inside of a county. So that unique experience, of course, was extremely attractive for here. She also served in Atlanta as well. So 3, well now, I guess 4 capital cities, or 2 capital cities, and 2 other major metropolitan areas. So this dynamic group of leaders, that's not all of, you know, we have some other leaders as well, and I'm not, because I'm fairly new, I don't know everybody you have met and have not met, but this group of leaders, extremely thankful and proud of. And I think the last thing I would say is the unique part about all of these leaders is they kind of joined and dove into the work after some things had already occurred. So, you know, we're dealing with the FY25 audit now that you'll hear about here shortly. But what is unique is that these folks have kind of stepped in kind of after those changes and decisions have been made and focused on delivering quality products. I think that's important because, you know, picking up someone else's good work, we'll say, the different ways people look at it, I'll say good work, and making it even better is something that they're focused on. So I'm thankful for
that. There's an organizing period there. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
did you recognize Cynthia Newbell? I didn't know if you saw my hand up or not. I just wanted to take the opportunity to acknowledge, and I believe he's in the conference room, Mr. Foster Curtis, who was appointed as our Inspector General in January of this year, after serving 2 decades as the Division Chief of the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, Office of the Inspector General. Highly experienced professional, Mr. Curtis earned numerous awards, commendations, and recognitions for his work, which include the U.S. Department of State Superior Honor Award for exemplary support, Special Agent of the Year for Criminal Investigation, and 3-time receipt of the NCIS Expeditionary Medal for service in Africa and Iraq. And City Council welcomed him on board as permanent Inspector General at our January meeting. So just want to acknowledge he's was with us serving extraordinarily well interim, but was and continues to serve and will serve as our permanent Inspector General. So just want to officially acknowledge and recognize him.
Thank you, Ms. Newville, and welcome to permanent status. Glad to have you.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be permanent.
Say again? I didn't hear well.
You said he was glad to be permanent.
This is great because we're glad that he's glad. So it's wonderful.
Awesome. So with that, as I mentioned, the packet that's in front of you, I'm going to jump to slide 4 and start from there. Start with the audit scope. This is a consistent slide when I met with you all back in the July time period, if I recall correctly. Just kind of outlines what the scope is of our engagements. We're engaged to audit the city's fiscal year 25 financial statements and express an opinion on the financial statements, whether they are in accordance with GAAP in all material respects. And then to report on internal control over financial reporting, governmental auditing standards, as well as compliance with the APA's audit specifications for cities, counties, and towns. I'm not going to hit too much on this mainly because we went through it in July, but I just wanted to reiterate some of that. On the next slide, it kind of breaks down a little bit of what I just said in the buckets. You have your financial statement piece, that's your financial statement audit, which we perform under GAS. The APA has certain specs in there, and the government auditing standards is an additional layer of professional standards that we have to use during the course of our engagement over the financial statements. And then the second piece, the federal award aspect, so that's a compliance audit that's performed in accordance with uniform guidance, as well as the OMB compliance supplement. When I met with you in July, the compliance supplement was late getting out. Typically, it comes out in the May timeframe. I think it came out the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So every single audit in the country is way behind schedule from where it was in historical years. So from a single audit standpoint, the city's single audit not being out on the streets yet is same with every other jurisdiction in the country. So that's not there's nothing anyone could have done that, but OMB just to have gotten that. The compliance supplement tells us what to audit. So we can't audit until the federal government tells us what to audit. On the right side of the slide, this is a group audit. So what that means is there are elements within inside the city's financial statements that are audited by different auditors. CLA is not engaged to audit those particular entities, and they're bulleted out on this slide. That's also mentioned in the financial statements itself that those the management, the board of those respective entities select their auditors. It's a common thing within the governmental industry space. And the next slide kind of talks about audit deliverables. I think there were some new members that came on in July. I think we have one more new member now. So just kind of from an educational standpoint, when you do get the 25 Act for, it's a thick document. There's a lot of information in there. Our work in that document varies depending on the section. There's an introductory section, a financial section, a statistical section. The bulk of our work is inside the financial section. We do not, and that's kind of laid out in the little org chart, if you will. So the introductory section, we do not audit, nor do we audit the statistical section. So we do not provide any assurance on the information in there. We do read that information and make sure that there's nothing materially contradicting to the information that's in the financial statements, but we do not provide any assurance on that. Within the financial section of the ACFR, there's various other documents or pieces of that. You have management's discussion analysis, and then at the bottom of the slide is the required supplementary information. Again, we do not audit those sections. Pieces of those have economic outlook narratives inside of it. It's kind of hard to audit the crystal ball, if you will. So there's no audit opinion issued on those sections. Again, kind of standard with the governmental industry space. And then you also have the basic financial statements, and that's the financial statement. That's the bread and butter of the audit. And those financial statements are also supported by other supplementary information that gives you more detailed or granular information about particular funds within the city's operations. For that other information, other supplementary information, we issue an in relation to opinion. So we don't audit those individual statements themselves, but they are in accordance with GAAP and agree to the financial statements in all material respects to those basic financial statements taken as a whole. If you skip two more slides, get to slide 8. Within any governmental set of financial statements, there are various opinion units. We audit by opinion unit, the first being the government-wide opinion unit. So that's essentially all your governmental operations. That consists of the general fund, the debt service fund, capital project funds, et cetera, as detailed on these slides. And there's also references to the specific exhibits that are the financial statements for those particular funds. So when you get everyone's anticipating the 25 ACFR, so when you get that, this could be your roadmap to reading that thing from cover to cover. On the next slide, kind of goes to the business type activities. So these, think of it as a cluster, if you will, of all your enterprise funds, gas, water, wastewater, et cetera, on there, as well as the exhibits they're included in. And those all roll up into your broader government-wide financial statements. There's also a set of financial statements that are kind of more in the middle, towards the middle back, if you will, for fiduciary activities. So these are the activities that the city is either the custodian of, or they have a fiduciary responsibility to, but they're not necessarily the assets and liabilities of the city themselves. Richmond Retirement System is the biggest element of that group of financial statements. So those assets are technically the members of the pension plan that the city has custody over, and or RRS has custody over, administers, and invests, et cetera, et cetera. And those are on Exhibit F with the details behind those in Exhibit J that go to the back. As I mentioned earlier, this is a group audit. All of those groups essentially roll up into the component unit, opinion unit. I can find a couple more ways to say unit within that sentence. But all those financial statements roll up into your basic financial statements in Exhibit A and B, and then the details of each one of those standalone are in Exhibit G. So that's just a little bit of background of what's in the financial statements. If you want to try to use it as a roadmap when you get the act, I think it could be beneficial from that standpoint. Jumping to slide 13, it's kind of an overall audit status. So from a financial statement audit standpoint, we're kind of on that back end of the fieldwork phase into the direct review. After direct review, kind of review through that piece, we go through our financial reporting phase and a secondary review. So we'll have an individual who's independent of the core Richmond audit engagement team, my team, review the assumptions and things that we did through our work and kind of test our work from a quality control standpoint. From a single audit perspective, we're in that planning phase. As I mentioned, the compliance supplement came out at Thanksgiving this year. So we've identified what those programs are that are tested, reached out to those departments. We're gathering the information at this point to start processing that and performing our testing to do that work. There are a few other deliverables within our audit contract, one being the VRS examination. That's testing the data that's sent to the Virginia Retirement System that supports their actuarial analysis of those liabilities that eventually get recorded into the city's financial statements. We completed that late summer, early August. There's a sheriff's AUP, so that's primarily internal controls of the sheriff's operations. That's wrapping up the reporting phase currently. And then there's a DEQ AUP that has some elements within inside of that we can't issue until the financial statements are issued because one of the steps is to agree the information to what was reported in the financial statements. The next slide is our governance communications. So there are elements of our, as auditing standards, there's certain elements that I'm required to report to those charged with governance. These are some of them from where we stand in the audit that I can report as of now. And I mentioned our responsibilities under gas and government auditing standards that we perform our audit under those. We have had no planned change in scope of our engagement. So management didn't, well, technically council here hires the auditor through the audit committee. There's no planned change to what the initial procedure was to perform to what we are. This year, from an accounting policy standpoint, the city had 2 changes in accounting policies. Those relate directly to standard changes set by the GASB. Those GASB 101 being the most significant of those, which deals with recording compensated absences. It's February, we're still working through the audit, so obviously that in of itself says, hey, there must have been some difficulties in performing the audit, but overall our relationship working with finance has been cordial. We get information from them as requested. So although there has been a long time period, there's been no difficulty to actually work with management, and we haven't had any disagreements with management on how something should be reported or recorded in the financial statements. In any set of financial statements, there are numbers that cannot be tied directly to either a cash receipt or a cash disbursement that requires management's estimates or judgments have to be made in recording those. The largest of those are on the top right-hand corner of this slide that are presented in your financial statements. The first 2 are primarily actuarial sciences. So those are ones where management engages actuaries to perform an actuarial evaluation of what those liabilities are. The Third one are fair value. So what is something worth as of 6/30 of your investments? The allowance for doubtful accounts is based upon historical collection information and current economic information. And then the last two are deal primarily capital assets and leases. That's the useful life, the discount rate used for leases and SPIDAs. And we evaluate management's assumptions and the inputs into that, determining whether those estimates are reasonable. The last one on this slide is management's consultation. If we become aware of management consulting with other CPA firms on how to report a transaction within the financial statements, or lack of a better word, opinion shopping, if you will, we were to make those charging governments aware of that, and we have not uncovered anything that would suggest management has consulted with other CPA firms. I'll skip through the last 4 slides that go through GASB pronouncements that are coming down the pipe. These will be ones that are effective for fiscal year 26. There's a new one, 105, which will be effective for fiscal year 27. I did walk through these in our July meetings, so just respect of your time. If there are questions, more than happy to address those on those particular standards, but got a little bit of time to address those. So with that, that's my end of my formal remarks, but more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
The $64 question, and I know some of this is beyond your control. What's your projection for when we'll actually have this audit?
Yeah, I mean, that date's been moving, I think, every month at this point, so I'd be hesitant to say a specific date. We're working diligently. We got a ACFR draft yesterday afternoon. We worked through that draft and have provided comments back on that draft back to city management. So not stalling from that standpoint. Working through the testing, we've got a handful of open items from a testing perspective that we need to close down and wrap those up before we can start moving into that review phase of the engagement. So working as diligent as possible, but I'd hate to tell you another date to change the date again.
So with the AFR, wasn't the deadline like January 15th or?
There's a deadline from the Auditor of Public Accounts for December 15th
Okay.
of every year.
So we've passed that.
Right.
Okay. So what is really holding it up that didn't happen on December 15th?
So there were significant changes in personnel and a very critical point to make a successful ACFR, if you will. So June and July are big time periods for closing down the books for the year, reconciling accounts that has significant vacancies, changes in management during that time period. Leading into the fall, so the September-October timeframe is typically when the audit starts. So we need a lot of information to start doing that, so the records need to be closed before we can get that. And during that time, there was a number of people who were out on extended leave that just we couldn't get the information. So between turnover, change of personnel, and those leave of absences kind of got the horse out the gate late, if you will.
Just wondering what administration thinks we can do to get in front of this. I mean, obviously you've been beefing up your staff. That's great. You know, I know you're not finance director. You came in the middle of this, and you started right when they were probably pulling down all the data and everything. So, you know.
Oh, well, I don't duck any questions. We're not running from it. I mean, we address these challenges head on. And I think the first thing, we want to make sure that we have redundancy. Mr. Miller made a great point that people were out, you're missing key staff. And so in some areas in government, you want to eliminate redundancy, not in fiscal operation. You want to increase redundancy. And so that's why we've hired and bulked up our hiring. So that's one area. But then the other piece is we started to partner with our component units a little bit more, because remember, you have to get their reports and things of that nature as well. I won't call out individuals of when they, but if those things are not on time as well, that has an impact. So multiple things. And then, you know, you had a change of administration. And so if you look at it, you got new leadership. So sometimes old leadership decides to go in a different direction. So a perfect storm of things there. But that's a singular year issue. We're making some corrections because I don't know in recent history if Richmond has been on time. You know, I mean, I think that is the elephant in the room, is that long before this mayor and even the last, you know, Richmond has a history of not being on time. Some of it is the structure. And so we're adjusting the things that we can control and then the things that we can't. Again, Mr. Miller highlighted, you had your new OMB requirements. That also plays a role, because if that piece is months late, then what would you expect to happen with everything that follows? So this year, one off is a perfect storm of change, both at the OMB level with the guidance that they give, changes in personnel, and you know the differences there. But moving forward, our adjustments are focused on increasing redundancy, making sure we adjust reporting schedules internally, as well as how we report to the council and even this committee. So it is just a structural overhaul. And as I stated in my last time coming before this body, changes start on day one. So we're already in process of doing it.
Great.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions about the external audit? Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, so good afternoon, audit committee members. You know, I normally start with a staffing update, but the chair did a great job at providing our update.
Big deal. You can repeat it. This red letter day.
I will, you know what, I will start. It's been a while because of the weather has really been difficult for us. And it's always difficult to kind of get so many people together. So I do want to thank Ms. Rochelle Carter for coordinating all of this. It was harder than you think it would be, getting this meeting so quickly back on the calendar. Thank you, Ms. Carter. And you did introduce our new staff members. We're very happy to have them. Mr. Amar, Mr. Brown, Ms. Harrison. They have great experience in government, even international government, which is really exciting for us, as well as IT. To be honest, we threw them all to the fire right away. They're on our new projects. We started new projects. They're out there. You know, you'll hear from them very soon as we progress with some of our major audits. So again, I want to welcome them again. And as was noted earlier, that leaves us down to just one vacancy in the office. Since I started, it was about 2 years ago since I've been the city auditor. And when I started, I was like, okay, my number one priority is staffing the office. And it's very difficult, as Mr. Foster probably knows, it's very difficult right now to get our offices staffed up. And so we are actually down to that one vacancy. And I do believe within the next couple of weeks, we will have that position filled. So hopefully by the next meeting, I will not have to offer a staffing update because we will be finally fully staffed.
Assembled here for a big party. 14.
As long as it's within rules and guidelines.
That's right. I got the lawyer over here.
Well, so now over the last few months, we've been focused on not just our audits. We really have been focused on a lot of training, as you can imagine, as we have 50% of our staff is new, as well as special projects and administrative projects. And again, some examples of that is we've trained our staff in using advanced data analytics in our audits so that they're more effective, more in depth, and more efficient. Most of our staff actually received an additional certification at a recent event for data analytics. So you'll see a lot more of that as we move forward. We've updated our policies and procedures so they're aligned with new government auditing standards that were just issued this year, major changes. So we had a policy update, and you know, we always recommend that the city update their policies and procedures in every audit. And so going through it ourselves, we're like, wow, this is really difficult. So we did get that done though, and there's more to come. We've also, I guess the most exciting thing is we're working with city administration and Mr. Donald and his team to really work on the recommendation process. We're working on a process to make it much more efficient moving forward so we can get more closed and reviewed. And we're actually working on a recommendation dashboard for our website. And so we're essentially, once we get this launched, city council, the audit committee, members of the public will be able to go to our website and see how many recommendations are open, how many have been closed, the priority level, historical information. And it's going to be, our plan is at least for it to be live on the website. So that is an ongoing project that you can look forward to in the upcoming months when we're able to get that up on the website. And now in terms of reports, we've issued 4 different reports since the last time we've met that we'll present here today. The first is our quarterly, or right now it's periodic report on recommendations. We've issued our 3rd and final report on the city's warehousing and inventory process. Through these 3 reports, I think at this point we've issued over or approximately 38 different recommendations on inventory management. This last one really focuses on the governance and overall aspect of inventory management. We issued a report on our conclusions on the city's tax rebate process and made recommendations moving forward, how to ensure better implementation of ordinances such as that. And we issued our IT assessment report, which will be covered later today in a closed session, as it is related to IT and security. So without further ado, unless you have any questions, I will pass it on over to our lead auditor, Leanne Castro, for that first presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Today I'm going to go over our fiscal year 2026 first period follow-up review. As part of our review, we interviewed management personnel and staff. We reviewed documentation submitted by the departments, and we reviewed documentation submitted by the departments for the work they have done to close these recommendations. These are the departments that closed recommendations this period. 8 high priority recommendations were closed, 15 medium, and 8 low priority. Additionally, we removed 1 recommendation due to no longer being feasible. And some of the recommendations closed were related to the DPU main warehouse, the Richmond retirement system, contract billing reconciliations, and updating and creating policies and procedures, among other findings. We would like to thank the administration and department staff for their work in implementing these recommendations. Slide, please. So this is an overview of the open recs during this period. At the start of this first period, which ran from approximately the end of June to the end of October, there were 137 total open audit recommendations. 25 recommendations were added during this period from 2 audits. We closed 31 recommendations and removed 1. And so at the end, we had 130 recommendations remaining open, with 46 of those being high priority. Also of those 130, 124 passed their original target implementation date. And I want to take a second to note that sometimes as departments are working on their recommendations, they realize that the implementation will take longer than they initially anticipated. So when they let us know, we can update their implementation date in our database. For example, during the first period, the procurement provided us with new target dates for some of their recommendations. And although this isn't reflected in the report, we are considering adding this to our upcoming dashboard. I'd like to close by reiterating the point in time report. Departments are continuously submitting information, and we are always actively reviewing information for potential closure. As of right now, we are in the second period, and so far we've closed 19 recommendations so far. 10 of those actually from the procurement from the P-card audit, so that's.
So I looked through this and talked to Riyadh this morning about I was really focused on the high priority recommendations. And if you calendar those, 2 of them from 2021, one of which seems pretty important. 2022 must have been a great year. There are no open. But then 5 in 23, 6 in 24, 28, 25. And then there are 5 recommendations, 4 of which are actually within their target date, one of which is past due. But it seems to me, we've talked about the opportunity that we've got now that the city is in a position to hire and fill positions and move ahead, that getting after not only the high priority ones, but particularly the high priority ones, and really knocking off the old ones, whether that's no longer relevant or it's stated in a different way. Or, hey, 5 years ought to be enough to close a recommendation. And I like, that's sort of a question for both audit and the CAO is how do we make it an objective of the committee that by the end of the next term, they're all gone and we're caught up.
I'd like to go. Okay. Well, look, I tell you, we walked into an elephant. Right?
I know.
I'm gonna just be honest. Again, I'm not ducking it. So you eat an elephant one bite at a time. And so I would start by saying the work that we have started is kind of doubling down and continuing on it. Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't highlight that more than you just heard that about 50 audit recommendations in a period. And I'm personally agitated because some of it is my fault because I check every single thing that's going to the auditor. And so those 19, I think we're like a day behind on submitting, from deadline and stuff, or that first period might be better. It's some additional work on general services on our implementation because these folks are thorough. You don't just get to have a plan. It's got to be implemented because we have a plan for all of those. I mean, I think we're trying to stay locked at the hip, but we've got to deliver. And so I would look at it and say, I agree with you. We've got to get all of those historical things in place. This is that traditional, it may not be my fault, but it's my problem. I think that's what this represents. But I think what we have started to do is how we report out is more methodical and important. But in addition to that is also looking at it with the end goal in mind. I think we're just starting on what result are we trying to get. If you look at these audit reports, the team, it's difficult because they're right there looking at me, but I mean, they're pretty thorough in, providing the recommendations, but also thoughtful in allowing us to say how we're going to do it. They tell us what's wrong and all of those things, and then we tell them how we're going to do it. I don't know if that's always been the case, that approach. And I will start with, we're going to continue. I'll just end with, we're going to continue doing what we're doing. This mayor has come in with this whole look for it, find it, fix it. That's like really our mantra. So we're using audit as a tool. They're looking for it, they're finding it, and we're fixing it. And so you saw those historic numbers. We're cleaning up the mess that was there. Admittedly, some of that is low-hanging fruit, but there are some high priorities that are in there that are being resolved. But if they haven't been looked at since 21, think about how difficult it is for us to put a fix in place. So I want to assure you that it's a focus. I'm also not going to lie to you, next audit meeting, unless we get snow and everything else that we don't want and it gets delayed a couple of times, it's probably unlikely, but we're committed to continue our process of every time we come before y'all, our goal is to say the VULA administration historically closed this many more. And if we continue that, we'll get in front of it.
That's great. Oh, that's fantastic. And I think the thing that's encouraging to me is the relationship between audit and administration, which has not always been entirely constructive. So that's great.
They tough now. Look, I'm just be honest. They tough. We got more audits than we can keep up with. But I mean, I
guys got a full staff. You better watch out.
Listen, it's going on. I mean, we're focused because we're actually adjusting our hiring, and everybody in my office now has to be able to be a part of audit responses to support the DCAO. So we're focused on it for sure.
Then one specific thing, which is actually, I think, the oldest one, that one of the 2021 recommendations had to do with not only collecting delinquent real estate taxes, but doing so in a balanced and fair way. And that's been a concern for a long time. I'd just be interested in your thoughts about whether we can clean that one up and sort of what's out there that we could collect and how long it's going to take us to collect it.
Yeah, so, the mayor committed for us to be able to do that basically in the middle of this. Is interesting because I don't know if y'all communicated fiscal years or calendar years, but basically in the middle of this year, a little bit before June 30th is what we're targeting. And so the way I would look at it is, and I use the audit as a tool seriously, and so it identifies key gaps. Some of that is how we partner with council on delivering these things. When you look at that audit, but you look at just our activities, one part of it is you've got legal who operates, delivers the program, et cetera, et cetera. But then you also have finance who has to develop some SOPs and some guidelines for the fiscal aspects of collection, distribution, as well as what's the cost to actually carry out the program. That work just had not happened and doesn't exist. So we have to put that in place, as well as, listen, I think this council and this mayor together, you see it with Affordable Housing Trust Fund, they're looking at it and saying, how do we get this right? And also having an implementation plan for everything we do. And so new legislation and how we address those things is going to help, but our implementation plan is also, so that is my answer to that.
Any other questions about the first report? Thank you.
I will add on the recommendations that, I can second. It's been from a quick process to now, Leanne is overburdened. I have to move her off of other audits because she's so needed on these recommendations and meetings to go over and update. So, I do think, we are very excited about seeing so many decrease, and we think that will continue to decrease because she is in a meeting, I feel, weekly about recommendations at this point.
Thanks.
Oh, y'all can switch the I like that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will cover the final phase of the citywide warehousing and inventory management audit. First, we'd like to thank Fire, General Services, Parks and Police for their cooperation and assistance throughout this engagement. We'd also like to thank the audit team for all their hard work. Next slide. Just a little background. We conducted a multi-phase citywide warehousing inventory management audit. Phase 1 and Phase 2 covered both DPU main and wastewater treatment plant warehouses and were issued in the latter part of 2024. This is the final phase, and it includes warehouse inventory management, controls, and procedures employed by General Services, Parks, Police, and Fire. The objective of this audit was to evaluate the warehouse inventory management controls and efficiency regarding duplication and ordering for the main warehouses operated in the city. The city administration requested this audit and identified all the main warehouses. Next slide, please. The overall audit conclusion. We found that stronger internal controls and coordinated oversight over inventory management are needed. Inventory is being managed independently across locations with differing practices, incomplete and accurate records, creating limited visibility into activities across the city. The absence of standardization in policies and procedures, multiple systems, unreliable data, along with other inconsistencies, increases the risk of fraud, waste, and abuse. Next slide. Now I'll cover the audit findings. We found 4 main findings that are applicable to not only the warehouses covered in this final phase, but all warehouses covered throughout this audit. The first one, lack of centralized inventory management and guidance. Departments are operating independently without policies and procedures, and most were lacking the dedicated staff. Number 2, inaccurate and incomplete records. Their costs are being captured inconsistently. We found discrepancies in physical counts, and there's no data standardization requirements. Departments are using generic item descriptions such as bleach or tide to label inventory. Number 3, no centralized inventory system. As a result, departments are using either spreadsheets or differing systems with data being captured inconsistently. Number 4, duplicate ordering and missed savings opportunities. Multiple departments are ordering similar items independently, which has resulted in missed opportunities for bulk purchasing and standardization. Next slide. In conclusion, we issued 7 recommendations with 100% concurrence. The recommendations are related to conducting a comprehensive inventory assessment and cost-benefit analysis to determine the appropriate level of inventory and warehouse configuration. We understand this assessment and cost-benefit analysis will take some time, so we are recommending interim actions to strengthen inventory management while aligning with anticipated citywide standards. Also, we recommended to reconcile and validate all critical data issued to both the fire and police departments, assess the feasibility of a centralized inventory management system, monitor commonly used items for strategic purchasing, and lastly, to assess amending city code pertaining to inventory. Next slide. Any questions?
That's a monumental accomplishment to finish the warehouse.
I walked in the door and they were like, "Oh, we had this inventory." I was, oh boy, it was gigantic. 38, I think, different recommendations made throughout all 3 phases.
Well, it's an amazing thing. I don't really have any questions, but I take my hat off to you for that audit, the whole thing, because that was a mess. And it seems like you scoped it now, and then good luck.
I mean, hey, this is probably the most helpful of the audits, I think, because, you know, it's less of a question on when, it really is a question on how, because are we going to be decentralized? Are we going to be centralized? Or is there some hybrid, which many folks do, including the state, you know, having a model in which for your different service areas. And so it's something that we're looking at now. But I think the thing that jumped out to me in this audit is that consistently across audits, the lack of internal controls that need to be put in place, while it doesn't take us, I'm a sports guy, so it doesn't take us all the way to the finish line or to a touchdown, but just improving the internal controls means we're consistently kicking field goals. So that's the focus, I mean, we've already kind of deployed folks to start on this process. And this is one of those where it's like, yeah, the plan is there, but the implementation is not there yet because we've got to actually deliver on it. I'll just give you one anecdote. The definition of a warehouse, even for us, can be a little different depending on, you know, where it sits. And that's important. I mean, it sounds like something nominal, but if you define a warehouse, this room as a warehouse because you store goods there, it changes because it's going to be hard to have a uniform process when this is not actually that. So the attention to detail that is necessary, I think, learning and understanding that as I on board is something that was extremely helpful, and thankful to the audit team for bringing that forward. A lot of work though. It is definitely, you know, a lot of work ahead for us.
Kristen?
So since we got, I can't remember, maybe 2 of the audits last year, was that in July or was it before that?
Yeah.
Okay, like, have any of those recommendations been closed? Like, is interim work happening?
Yeah, there's a lot of recommendations. Of course, I don't have the exact number, but I can get that for you. But yeah, we've been working with DPU.
Okay.
And they have been very helpful in getting these back to us.
Okay.
Yeah, we're addressing them. Easiest way to say it is the low-hanging fruit, the things that exist that you can fix right away are being addressed. But there are some things that as you look at the definition of a warehouse and what is it going to be across, are you going to be centralized or decentralized, or where is the opportunity for a hybrid? Those things are going to take a little longer and they cross audits, if that makes sense. Well, it's one, but I know it's 3 parts. So we're trying to have uniform, be able to address them in a uniform manner.
So follow up, and this is a little off topic, but it's related. Like, is there an opportunity to even condense some of your facilities? You know, like if, and I never went into any of the warehouses, but like if we know from the DPU audit that there were excess number of things. So like if we're condensing the actual supplies, can we also shrink the footprint, which hopefully would
I would
ultimately.
say that's under consideration, but it's not as simple as that. So one, you use DPU, for example, and then we'll talk about parks. One is an enterprise fund,
Right.
where the other is general fund. And so how we calculate, our track expenditures and things of that nature have to be considered. Do we need, again, that model of centralized versus decentralized? It even goes into the structure of our organization. Are these folks aligned properly? Are operational departments aligned with others? And maybe you could put all of those warehouses together. The decisions are being evaluated, but they're not done yet. But yes, I mean, that is a consideration that you mentioned, but also how do we streamline our ordering, our facilities? It's not just facilities, it is also the actual actions related to filling the demand with supply. Just our whole process for that is being evaluated. But does the opportunity exist? The answer is yes. How are we going to implement it? We are working through.
Any other
Mr. Chairman, I have one question, and I just wonder if the speaker there could speak to the citywide visibility note that she mentions in audit finding 3. I understand from the presentation that there are these separate processes independent to the individual departments, but can you speak more to as to what's the challenge on the citywide visibility? Is it all being siloed in the individual departments, the information, and not going into any, I guess this goes back to the centralization point, but just can you speak further to that point on the visibility?
Hi, yes, I'll take that one. So as Tony mentioned, we looked at least it's across 5 different departments, and each department has its own way of tracking. Some were as simple as a spreadsheet, others had multiple different types of systems themselves, and those systems do not connect to each other, they don't interface, they don't talk to each other. So from a citywide perspective, you just can't get that visibility across the city. There was no way to really identify which warehouses could have been ordered the exact same items. That was a manual analysis that we had to do. And we only horn on the very simple, easy things like toilet paper and tissue, because those things were easily, readily identifiable among the different departments. But there could be other items that aren't exactly the same because they're not using consistency, or even how they name things or how they're setting up details of their system to be able to determine what they're ordering or how much they have on hand. We saw discrepancies between the inventory counts that are in the system versus the physical counts that we did when we went on site. So that's why we can't really have a big visibility across the city, multiple systems, inconsistency in how we track the information, and just to be quite honest, not having an accurate accounting of what we have in the first place. I hope that helps.
Thank you. It did. Thank you.
I'd just say, I remember maybe 6 years ago, the VCU Business School did an assessment of the city that was pretty good, I thought. And it said essentially that there are 2 fundamental problems. One is that we have information systems that are incompatible, don't communicate. And then secondly, at that time, and this has improved dramatically in the time that I've been able to watch this, we had city employees who used their unique knowledge of particular information systems as their approach to job security, which meant as long as I'm the only guy that knows how to do the computer system at the and as long as I don't tell anybody, I'm sure I'm going to be there. And I think that a big picture item is to the extent that we can get city staff that wants to fix the problem, which I think we now have, and we really tackle the problem of disparate information systems that can't communicate, that's an enormous opportunity for the city. But this is like an echo of that report that you're talking about in this inventory of a warehouse. Any other questions about? All right, we got.
We'll move on to the rebates.
Yes, so this next one is the non-audit service of the real estate tax rebates. I'd like to start off by thanking the Department of Finance for working with us and providing all the necessary information that we needed for this project, as well as the City Assessor's Office for really helping us understand the land book and all the real estate data involved in creating this. I'd like to also thank our team, Castro here, for her hard work on the project as well. Just give a little bit of the background and objective. Ordinance 2024-276 was passed authorizing up to $16 million in real estate tax rebates. And this was basically to return a surplus to taxpayers through this one-time rebate. The ordinance really defined three major things: the eligible property, which is property that was assessed for taxes on January 1st, 2024, eligible taxpayer, who is the owner of the eligible property on January 1st, 2024, and then payments were to be calculated as 4 cents of every $100 of the assessed value as of January 1st, 2025. So there was a little bit of a difference there. And so basically in March 2025, the first batch of checks were issued. And after the first check was ran, some issues were identified within the process related to incorrect payees, incorrect calculations, as well as incorrect inclusion or exclusion of certain parcels based off of some of the data that was used. As such, a second batch of checks were issued in June 2025. And at that point, they also issued credits to go along with it. And throughout this process, when these issues were identified, we were asked to come in, city administration asked our office to come in and review the rebate process against the ordinance to identify any variances or any overpayments and opportunities for improvement. So now I'll turn it over to Ms. Castro.
Thank you. Okay, so we concluded that overall, the majority of taxpayers did receive an accurate rebate amount after the second batch of checks went out. However, we did identify a small number of potential issues leading to potential variances of approximately $115,000 in overpayments and approximately $80,000 in underpayments. There are likely additional over and underpayments that cannot be quantified until further research is performed, most of these involving property sales and transfers. This is an overview of our key observations related to the issues that we identified. First, there was no formal implementation plan for the rebate program, and the ordinance did not specify how to handle several scenarios. Overall, majority calculations were correct. However, 1,667 parcels contained variances. Excess payments were caused by errors in the first check issuance, ownership issues, and how eligible properties were determined. And this led to the city distributing more funds than was appropriated by the ordinance. I'm now going to talk a little bit more about the last three bullets. So first, talk about the calculation variances. We noted a few calculation errors.
I'm not hearing what you all are saying.
Talk louder.
Okay, apologize there, you all.
First, we'll talk about the calculation errors. Rebates for some parcels were calculated based on area tax and special assessments rather than the assessed values. Some properties had rebates that were based on the 2024 assessed value rather than the 2025 assessed value. And some parcels that were inactive prior to January 1st, 2024 received rebates. We also noted that some calculations need additional review. The majority of the variances that we identified were due to the use of the 2024 rehabilitation abatement with the 2025 assessed values, rather than using the 2025 abatement and the 2025 value. The ordinance does not specify how to apply the rehab abatements, therefore additional review is needed. We also noted that there were parcels that did not have an assessed value in 2025, so the 2024 value was used to calculate the rebate. This also needs additional review as the ordinance does not state what to do when there's no 2025 value. Next slide, please. In addition to the calculation errors, we also found issues with the payments. There were instances when the first rebate check was written to the incorrect taxpayer and cashed, and then a second check was issued to the correct taxpayer. There were checks from the first batch that were issued for incorrect amounts. There were rebates sent out for ineligible parcels. And we also found parcels that were not in the 2024 land book but still received rebates. And 17 of those were cashed. So further research is needed to determine if the parcel actually existed as of January 1st, 2024. We also noted that some transfers and sales that occurred in 2023 were not reflected in the 2024 land book, and these require additional research to determine who the correct payee should have been. Finally, credits were applied to the parcel account for rebates less than $30 and for parcels with a delinquent balance. And so when a credit is posted to the parcel account rather than issued as a check, if there was a sale or transfer, the current owner may have received the rebate rather than the eligible owner as of January 1st, 2024. Lastly, as previously noted, City Council authorized the amount of the rebate for up to $16 million. The city ended up paying out approximately about $25,000 more than that limit. The overage was caused by the issuance of the incorrect checks in the first batch that were cashed and had to be reissued so that the correct taxpayer could get the correct rebate. This total also does not include any payments that may be necessary to reimburse taxpayers for any of the issues identified in this report once city administration determines what course of action to take. And this table breaks down payments that were made by the city. We issued 3 recommendations: to develop a corrective action plan to address the issues identified, to consult with the city attorney regarding the spending of over $16 million, and to strengthen the implementation process for future ordinance-driven programs. And city administration concurred with all 3 recommendations.
I have 2 quick ones. One, 1,667 parcels makes me want to, I should know this or vaguely, but roughly how many parcels how many parcels are there?
Over 70,000.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Secondly, when the city issued checks to people who didn't deserve them, is that gone, or is there some civilized way that you can try to recover that? Or is that just how bad? I'm just curious.
Yeah, you go for it.
So when we look at these numbers, without context, I'm glad you asked that question because it sounds like a large number. But then when you realize we have over 70,000 parcels and you look at the percentage, it's quite small. But then when you break it down to an individual receiving an overpayment of $19 or $6, it costs more. There you go, you said it. It costs more to collect it than it would to actually count it as a loss. And that's the situation that we found ourselves in for collecting, because those amounts are nominal. For me to, I'm just using an example this time, but for me to collect $2 from her, it costs $27. So I've got a net loss of $25 to collect. That doesn't make as much sense. But what we did put in place is the ability for people who were underpaid to be able to come and collect, but those numbers are also nominal. And so some folks, especially, we're in an interesting economic climate. In lieu of receiving $10, if they could notify us and we could mail it, then that's likely a wash. But for them and us, if it's $1 or $2, then it costs more than the stamp for them to receive and us to send. So that is it is negligible, but we have to make sure that if someone wants to collect, they are able to. And so we put those measures in place.
I think I read this in the report. Isn't it also possible if you owe me $2 to give me $2 credit?
That is correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Again, for this one though, this goes back to the one I went here, so I'm glad. But I think what we have seen in this opportunity that we've seen in the other audits as well is that there's a great opportunity, especially as we forge a new relationship with the council, is that having an implementation plan for every piece of legislation, especially one like this, because the biggest process, like I know people publicly beat up on the finance team and all that, but this is a pretty tough thing for them to be able to deliver. It's something that is new. The time constraints developed in advance of their ability to be able to deliver. And so if you have to do something within a 30-day period with no testing, with no implementation plan, with none of those things in place, it is a challenge. Now, that does not mean that if it's on the books, we've got to comply, but I think we're working to try to bring those things to not only the council's attention, we've been a great partner, by the way, in looking at legislation and how we do it better, but also from the city to feel that it's okay. Listen, y'all bring this stuff up so that we can report out on these challenges in a thoughtful way. And I think for this one, it highlights a great opportunity for us to do that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just have so many questions.
I'm gonna say question and then
Yeah, so I think, and I was on the outside when the rebates were being delivered, but I did vote on this when I was still on council. What confused me being on the outside and seeing the delays and the errors and all of that is that there had been previous rebates.
Okay.
Now you guys didn't audit them, so they could have been messy and, whatever, but I did not remember significant delays. And I know there was like some processing errors, clearly. I don't know if you guys have any information on that.
They were done differently. If I let me speak better on this, the ordinance was very different this time around than it was
Okay.
last time.
Because last time it was tied, according to of course, we didn't look at it, but according to like the O&R request that was submitted, it was tied to the most recent paid real estate bill. So it tied the owner, whereas this one took 24 owners and properties and used the 25 bills. Well, we noted in the report that causes properties change, they merge, they split. So you got to really look into, and then ownership changes.
Right.
Whereas the last time it was, okay, this is the most recent bill, this is who paid it, you're the person that's getting it. So it tied it to an actual payment of an actual bill, whereas this one tied it to concepts from 2 different years.
Okay.
Which
So
now-
that's like the big takeaway is it has to be done that way moving forward, right?
Right. We noted those like observations, lots of ways you could do it, but I think, in my opinion, the biggest takeaway, I know Mr. Donald and I have talked about this at length, is the implementation plan.
Right.
Whatever, you could do anything, as long as you kind of plan it, ahead of time, and we say, okay, what data do we have? What information do we have? Can we actually do this in this time frame, right? Like when we pass the ordinance, we do have that plan from administration, how to strategically implement it. I think that's one of the big things we keep seeing in a lot of the audits. That if you guys plan it up front, it becomes a lot easier. Whereas in this process, trying to figure it out after the fact, it leads to getting a little bit messy as you move forward.
Which led to some of the variances in the calculations we had, because where the ordinance isn't specific, you're using 2 years now, so which figure do you use?
Partnership is helpful. Excited, I think mayor and council are in lockstep on a variety of things. So I think that's going to help us clean some of this stuff up as well.
This is actually just a wonderful thing to hear, that the CAO's office, council, and the auditor's office are of a common mind and how to coact these things. That's great. Any other questions for Foster? You've been very patient. Now your moment. So welcome in your official capacity, and thank you very much. I can't begin to tell everybody how excited I am about the opportunity to be the Inspector General. And I wanted to lead off with some changes we've made to the office. Staffing, like Riyadh mentioned, is always a challenge. Recently, we have added two new investigators, one criminal analyst, and our Deputy Inspector General, who is behind me, William Brown. They bring a wealth of experience. Our problem is we're competing with the federal government. We're hiring law enforcement officers or former law enforcement officers that bring that experience to the table, because we're arming them and they're carrying a badge. And so we have to have some trust in that position when we're providing them with a badge. But we're competing with the federal government, and we're losing a couple of folks to federal law enforcement. So that's always a challenge. But for right now, we're just one investigator shy of being fully staffed. And we're bringing one investigator on in March, but then we're also losing an investigator possibly too. So we're going to be back to square one.
You can see on the slide here, the number of cases we've had opened. Right now, we've got 24. We've added 3 in the last week, so that number is actually 27. 6 cases closed substantiated, 8 unsubstantiated, and we've got 1 referred outside because it was outside of our scope and jurisdiction. It involved Medicaid fraud, so that went to Health and Human Services. We're doing a much better job of keeping these investigations or maintaining jurisdiction in these investigations instead of farming them out. We found that that's kind of airing city's dirty laundry, and we're attempting to keep those in-house as long as they're within our own scope and jurisdiction. I wanted to highlight the auditor's office. When they did their audit of the fuel cards, they passed to us a number of suspicious uses of the fuel card, amounting to approximately $54,000 in change of fuel card usage that was suspicious. We opened 8 investigations as a result of what the auditor's office passed to us. 5 of those cases were substantiated and led to 5 individuals being terminated. 3 of those individuals have been charged, and we're seeking to recuperate about $15,000, almost $16,000 for the city from their misuse of the fuel card. 2 of those folks were terminated, and due to statute of limitations issues, because these are misdemeanor offenses, we're just not able to pursue them and charge them. So those we're going to write off, but we are pursuing roughly $16,000 in restitution to the city. And that's us in a nutshell right now. We've got a number of investigations going on, and you'll forgive me, I don't mean to be cryptic, and I don't mean to make it seem like we're hiding anything from you, but to maintain the integrity of the investigation, we're just not going to get into details on those. We'd like to eventually grow our office to where right now we're a reactive office, right? So we're getting the tips coming in from the public, we're getting information passed to us from the auditor's office, and we react to that. We'd like to eventually grow to the point where we can do some proactive investigations. We see a number of issues that keep cropping up in the same area, and we'd like to proactively tackle those. With our staff and the way it is right now, we're still reactive, just catching cases as they can.
So what's your staff now?
Right now, we're at 4 investigators.
And how many do you think you need to adapt to being proactive?
We'd probably need to add 2. We need to add 2. That's all I've got. Any other questions?
Mr. Inspector General, without divulging your pending investigations, can you speak to, maybe the particular trends that you're seeing? Are there areas, I know I don't want you to go into them, but are there areas of major concern that you're seeing in your pending investigations?
There are, and you're going to forgive me again, because if I tell you what those areas are, I'm afraid that we are going to tip our hand a little bit early. So please forgive me for not being able to answer that question, but I just don't want to air that publicly. Something I'd be willing to perhaps talk about offline.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you. Any new business?
So we have the audit plan update. Pull it up. So generally, before I go into the audit plan update, I just give the reminder to everyone of the 3 phases of an audit. I guess you can say 4 if you count follow-up, but the 3 major phases of an audit are the planning phase, where really we're doing a risk assessment of what we're auditing and coming up with a plan that really focuses on the areas of heaviest risk, best benefit. We have the fieldwork phase, where essentially we're just executing that plan. And then we have the reporting phase, where an external auditor talked about a little bit about it, where we're doing an extensive amount of quality control and review of our work, as well as drafting the report, drafting the recommendation, sharing that with management, and going with it. So those are the major phases of an audit go on here. So what we have in progress here is on this next slide. We still have the streetlight maintenance phase 2 audit. It became a little bit lower of a priority. And Ms. Castro was, she's been working on that, but as you've seen, you've heard from her a lot today. So we had to pull her off on some more higher priority items. But I think Ms. McCoy and Ms. Castro, they plan on having this wrapped up in the next couple of months. So we will have that final phase at the next meeting. Our warehousing, of course, we finished all 3 phases. The real estate tax rebates we covered, finished that one. The security of city facilities, this audit is an interesting one. We started it And we realized it's really 2 audits in one, with 2 major objectives that so you're likely to get 2 reports from this. One is focused on the security expenditures and the contract management of the city, which is a substantial area. And, of course, Mr. Amar is working on that now. We're at the end phases of that particular audit. The other one is more of the city's overall approach to security, physical security of the buildings, of the process. And so that one will come later on. And that one's involving real security, so that might be a closed session issue. I'm not sure, depending on, how it plays out, what we write. So we're splitting that into 2 separate reports as we move forward. And they're both, one, on the contract management piece is very much to the end, and then the other one is in field work, the more overall piece. We have a non-audit service of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. This was requested by City Council for us to determine the city's compliance with Code Section 12-46. It's essentially on how the city was required by code to fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. That project is actually almost completed. Management has the report. We're expecting to get a response either late today or tomorrow. And so we're hoping that we're going to be able to put that report out tomorrow. So you should get a report from us tomorrow on that particular topic. Next slide. So more are in progress. We have our continuous monitoring and risk assessment audit / project. In the past, we used to issue a continuous report. I'm sure you remember that particular report. And so we've actually turned this into, we want to do ongoing monitoring. And this is a great area with synergy with the Inspector General's office, because this project is essentially a data-driven project. We take all of the city's data and we analyze it for abnormalities, right? And weird things that we may see. And so we've always done that kind of a once-a-year project. We want this to be really continuous. And so that's going to be Ms. Castro's next project after streetlights. And so we split this for this version around into multiple reports on different areas. We can do a little bit more work as we prep for it to be continuous. And so you're going to get multiple reports in the next couple of months on different areas, leave balances, overtime issues, overtime compliance, payroll, duplicates separately. And then moving forward, Foster was when I were talking about getting together to come up with that approach of proactive monitoring, things that we may see in our analysis that our offices can work together to run down that's suspicious, of concern. I thought this is a great area for that synergy. And then we also have our other audits in progress. Right? I mentioned we have our new staff. We have our finance department refund notification compliance audit. This was a city code that was passed, I believe, last year, requiring the finance department to notify, businesses of when there was an overpayment within 90 days. So we're working on that compliance audit currently. It's in the planning phases. We've really got it going. Mr. Abdullah is managing that audit, and it's now, other ones are completed. We're picking up steam there. We have our fire and emergency services payroll audit. It's been on the plan for a while. We're finally able to use staff. Mr. Brown has that audit. We finally got it going. We've received some documents today for that audit policies, and we're going to be able to really put forth a lot of time towards that. It's a very big audit, in all honesty. And then we have our accounts payable audit. It's called accounts payable, but it's more of a procurement to payment audit. I've mentioned many times that audit committee members have been here. The most risky part of government, right, from a fraud perspective, is the procurement to payment cycle. That's where you see the majority of fraud, waste, abuse occurring. And so our AP audit is a procurement to payment audit, and it will be a very large audit, if we be honest. And it'll likely be issued in multiple phases, like some of our, like our warehouse audit, right? 3 phases. This one, we're thinking 3 phases, most likely, but we do have to perform a comprehensive risk assessment. So this one will be on the plan for a while until we finish all different major areas of this audit. And that one, Ms. Harrison, she started and she jumped right into that major audit. So moving on to the audits we still have on the plan that haven't been started yet. Again, we might have a new staff member hopefully starting very soon. And I'm not sure if I will throw one of these to them or not, because the first one we have on the plan, there's the personal property tax assessment and collection. This was to be a follow-up audit because the city has implemented RVA Pay for this particular module. So, and there's been some issues that we want to get in and audit this particular process, but at the same time, we do have a lot of finance audits open right now. And so, we have to really manage, how many can finance take at the same time. It is our next planned audit that we really do want to get to. And so we can't start it this fiscal year. We will keep it on the plan for next fiscal year. The other two on the plan, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund expenditure side of the audit, we have had this on the plan for a while, and the contracts, I believe, have been awarded, but there hadn't been enough expenditures expended really yet to justify an audit. So we've kind of had it as a reassessing it to the point that we believe since our last audit, there's been enough expenditures to really, properly audit it in a way that's useful. And then we have a facilities maintenance audit. I think, obviously preventative maintenance is one of the most major topics in our government and every government currently. So we want to get to this audit. This one will likely start, if not really late in the fiscal year, likely at some point next fiscal year. This is another one that is a massive undertaking. I think the last time we did it was 8-9 years ago, and it was huge, and how long it took to go through all of it. And so this one will be a major audit, but I do anticipate that rolling into the plan next year. Next slide here. We have our special projects that we do every year, the cybersecurity vulnerability assessment that will be presented in a closed session shortly. It is completed. Quarterly follow-up, of course, Leanne does that, and that we've done 1 out of 3. The next one is coming later this month, so you'll have one very soon. We've completed our external audit assessment. Ms. Senior Auditor Eunice Carter took care of that, did a great job providing assistance. We have a service efforts and accomplishments, a SIA project that's per city code. Essentially, that is turned into a community survey where the results are benchmarked against other localities. We work very closely with administration and especially Director Braille with this particular project. And the timeline currently is that it should be completed by June is where we're working towards right now, where the vendor we hired can do that survey and kind of put the results together. That one will be presented actually to City Council once it is completed. And then we have our other special projects and policy updates, this OCA project. Sometimes there are things done, things we see that we're concerned about, policy updates. And for the year, our major project here was our policy updates because of the new standards. And that has been completed again by Mr. Avaleo, took the lead on that. It really helped us update our standards to the new government auditing standards. So if there's any questions about the plan or any comments, I'll be happy to take.
Just a quick question about the facilities, man. Is that that's the utility infrastructure?
Warehouse part 2.
Oh, I can't wait.
Let's wait a little bit.
Yeah, let's accelerate that one. Yeah, that's great. Any other business, old or new? All right. Now, we need to have a closed session. We'll take a little bit longer than usual about this in that I got the sort of blurb way that we make a motion to have a closed session and how we end the closed session. And when I read it, I thought, wow, there's a lot here. And so I'm gonna make the motion, but I'm gonna kind of explain the motion, and at the end, I'm gonna invite a motion to close the closed session, but I'm gonna restate that in a way that sort of makes it plain what we're talking about. The Virginia Code includes the Freedom of Information Act, which requires that we conduct these proceedings transparently. And there are a variety of exceptions, one of which is in the event that anything that we're going to discuss or hear about presents the risk of compromising the security of a system, a procedure, or the safety of people who work for the audit committee, employees of the city government. So the motion is this. I move that the audit committee go into a closed meeting pursuant to section 2.2, 3711A19 of the Code of Virginia. That's the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, to discuss cybersecurity assessments and security plans and measures of the city information technology systems, because discussion of such information in an open meeting would, and I'll add, or could, jeopardize the city's information technology systems. So that is a motion. I'll have another preface when we get to closing, but I need a second for that motion, that we open a closed session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and I think that is when we invite everybody who's not on the committee or a senior city official.
Great, now that the meeting's open, you need to vote that nothing
Oh, okay, well, so I won't put you through that again, but so moved. I need each member of the committee to agree to certify that nothing that was not supposed to be discussed was discussed in closed session.
Aye.
Aye.
Dennis? Mr. Stiller?
Thank you, John.
Aye.
He adjourned.
Okay.